She leaned over the kitchen counter that Tuesday night and said it like she was discussing the weather. "I'll give him the vacation you booked. My boss deserves it more." I didn't argue. I didn't even look up from the pipe wrench in my hands. The kitchen faucet had been dripping for 3 weeks, and Bree had mentioned it exactly 17 times. Now, crouched under the sink with my head in the cabinet, I felt something click into place that had nothing to do with plumbing. "Graham works so hard," she continued, her voice carrying that dreamy quality she'd developed over the past 6 months. "He's been pulling 16-hour days on the Morrison account. A week in Cabo would be perfect for him." I tightened the fitting and tested the connection. No more drip. If only marriages were as easy to fix as pipes. "Brooks, did you hear me?" "I heard you." I slid out from under the sink and wiped my hands on the towel. Bree stood there in her silk pajamas, the expensive ones I'd bought her for Christmas, scrolling through her phone, probably texting Graham Ellison, her boss at Meridian Financial. The same Graham who'd been calling our house at odd hours, who'd started requiring Bree to work late 3 nights a week, who'd somehow convinced my wife that a contractor's salary wasn't enough to support her lifestyle. "So you're okay with it?" She looked surprised, like she'd been preparing for a fight. "Sure." I kept my voice level. "Whatever makes you happy." The truth was, I'd been planning that Cabo trip for 8 months. I'd researched resorts, compared flight times, even learned basic Spanish phrases. The vacation was supposed to be our chance to reconnect, to remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. But watching Bree's face light up as she typed another message to Graham, I realized that ship had already sailed. After she went to bed, I sat at my laptop in the spare room and pulled up our vacation booking. The confirmation email was still in my inbox, along with the travel insurance policy I'd added as an afterthought. I'd always been thorough about details. It came with the territory of running a contracting business. One missed permit or overlooked building code could sink an entire project. I opened a new browser window and logged into our joint checking account. The vacation had cost $4,000, charged to our shared credit card 3 weeks ago. Bree's name was on the reservation as the primary traveler, with me listed as the companion. Interesting. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek, my oldest friend and occasional business partner. "Still up? Jenny's asleep and I'm bored out of my mind." I called him back. "What's eating you?" Derek had known me since high school. He could read my moods better than my own wife. "Bree's giving our vacation to her boss." "Wait, what? The Cabo trip you've been planning forever?" "That's the one." Derek was quiet for a moment. "You know what this means, right?" "Yeah." I stared at the booking confirmation on my screen. "I know exactly what it means." "What are you going to do about it?" I clicked through to the travel insurance policy and read the fine print. There it was, buried in Section 12, misuse of bookings, unauthorized transfers, and fraud protection. I'm going to let them enjoy their vacation. "Brooks, that doesn't sound like you're letting anything slide." "You're right." I opened another browser tab and searched for Graham Ellison's home address. Public records were surprisingly easy to access when you knew where to look. I'm not letting anything slide. After I hung up with Derek, I spent 2 hours documenting everything. Screenshots of the booking confirmation, photos of the credit card statements, copies of the travel insurance policy. I even found Bree's phone on the kitchen counter. She'd forgotten to lock it again, and scrolled through her messages with Graham. The texts made my stomach turn, not just the obvious flirtation, but the casual way they discussed me. "Brooks won't even notice," she'd written. "He's always buried in some project." Graham's response was worse. "Poor guy probably thinks he's still married to the girl he met in college." I photographed everything, uploaded it to a secure cloud folder, and created backups on 2 different drives. Then I did something that would have seemed impossible 12 hours earlier. I opened our joint savings account and transferred every penny to a new account in my name only. By morning, I had a plan. Bree bounced into the kitchen at 7, already dressed for work in her power suit and designer heels. She'd been dressing better lately, I realized. More expensive clothes, more attention to makeup and hair, all for Graham. "I'm so excited about Cabo," she said, pouring coffee into her travel mug. "Graham's assistant is handling the flight changes today." "Flight changes?" "Well, obviously we need to switch the tickets to our names. Graham and me, I mean." She didn't even look at me as she said it. "You don't mind, right? You hate flying anyway." "Right." I buttered my toast and watched her gather her things. "When are you leaving?" "Thursday morning, early flight." She kissed my cheek, a perfunctory peck that felt like a business transaction. "You'll be fine on your own for a week, won't you?" "I'll manage." After she left, I called the airline. "I need to make some changes to a reservation," I told the customer service representative. I provided the confirmation number, answered the security questions, and waited. "What changes would you like to make, Mr. Carvin?" "I want to add travel insurance to both tickets, and I need to update the emergency contact information." "Certainly. The insurance will be an additional $140, and it includes coverage for trip cancellation, medical emergencies, and booking fraud protection." Perfect. The next call was to Meridian Financial. I'd done electrical work in their building 2 years ago, which meant I still had contacts in the facilities department. "Hey, Brooks." It was Tommy Chen from building maintenance. "What's up, man?" "I need a favor, Tommy. Can you get me the employee directory? Specifically, I need contact information for Graham Ellison's wife." Tommy was quiet for a moment. "This about your wife and her boss?" "You know about that?" "Dude, everyone knows. They're not exactly subtle. Graham's been booking conference rooms for private meetings every Tuesday and Thursday." My hands tightened around the phone. "Can you help me or not?" "Give me 10 minutes. While I waited, I called my bank and added fraud protection alerts to all our accounts. Then I contacted our apartment management company and requested a security code change, effective immediately. Tommy called back with Vivian Ellison's phone number and email address. He'd also included her work information. Apparently, she ran a non-profit organization downtown. "Thanks, Tommy. I owe you one. Just make sure those two get what's coming to them." I spent Wednesday morning moving Bree's belongings to a storage unit across town. Not everything, just her clothes, shoes, and personal items. The kind of things she'd need if she suddenly found herself without access to our apartment. I paid for 3 months in advance and kept the key. Wednesday evening, Bree came home with 2 new suitcases. "Graham bought these for the trip," she announced, wheeling them into our bedroom. "Aren't they gorgeous? Real leather." I watched her pack, noting how carefully she folded each outfit, how she included the jewelry I'd given her for our anniversary. She was packing like someone who might not be coming back. "You seem excited," I said. "I am. This is exactly what I need, Brooks. Some time away to think about things." "What kind of things?" She paused in her packing, a silk dress draped over her hands. "About us. About what I want from life. About whether I'm happy." "And you need to go to Cabo with your boss to figure that out?" "Graham understands me in ways you don't." She folded the dress and placed it carefully in the suitcase. "He sees my potential. He believes in me." "I see." I stood up from the bed. "Well, I hope you figure it all out." Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Bree was up at 5, double-checking her packing and fussing with her hair. Graham was picking her up at 6:30 for their 7:45 flight. I made coffee and toast, playing the role of the understanding husband. Inside, my heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. "Have a good trip," I said as she wheeled her suitcases to the door. "I'll call you when we land." She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, but then Graham's car honked outside. I watched from the window as she loaded her bags into his silver BMW. He got out to help her, and I got my first good look at Graham Ellison in person. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. He looked like the kind of man who'd never fixed a leaky faucet in his life. They drove away at 6:35. At 6:45, I called the airline again. I need to cancel a reservation, I told the representative. Certainly, sir. Can I have your confirmation number? I provided the information and answered the security questions. I see this booking has 2 passengers. Are you canceling both tickets? Yes, both tickets, and I want to process the refund immediately. The cancellation will incur a fee of $200 per ticket, and with the travel insurance you purchased, you're eligible for a full refund of the remaining balance. The insurance company will need to verify the reason for cancellation. The reason is booking fraud, unauthorized use of the reservation. I see. In that case, we'll need to flag this with our security department and hold the refund pending investigation. Perfect. My next call was to Vivian Ellison. Mrs. Ellison, this is Brooks Carvin. I believe you know my wife, Bree. I'm sorry, I don't think She works with your husband at Meridian Financial. They're actually traveling together right now, to Cabo, on the vacation I booked and paid for. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Mr. Carvin, I think we need to talk. Vivian Ellison had the kind of voice that could cut glass when she was angry. By the time I finished explaining the situation, I could practically hear her sharpening knives through the phone. You're telling me that my husband is on a romantic vacation with your wife, using tickets that you paid for? That's exactly what I'm telling you. I have screenshots of their text messages, copies of the booking confirmation, and credit card statements showing the charges to our joint account. Send me everything. I spent the next hour forwarding emails and uploading files to a shared folder. Vivian called me back 20 minutes later. I've seen enough, she said. What do you want from me? I want them to face consequences for their actions, real consequences. Then we're on the same page. What did you have in mind? I outlined my plan. Vivian listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You're more devious than I expected, Mr. Carvin. I prefer thorough. Either way, I like it. I'll be at Logan Airport in 2 hours. After hanging up with Vivian, I called Derek. How's the revenge plot going? He asked. Phase 1 is complete. I need your help with Phase 2. What do you need? I need you to spread some gossip. Derek laughed. I'm not really the gossip type, Brooks. That's why it'll work. If you start talking about Bree and Graham, people will listen. Start at Murphy's Tavern, hit the lunch crowd. What exactly am I supposed to say? Just mention that Bree Carvin gave her husband's vacation to her boss. Let people draw their own conclusions. And you think this will accomplish what exactly? Bree cares about her reputation more than anything else. Social humiliation is the one thing she can't handle. While Derek worked the gossip angle, I focused on more practical matters. I called our internet provider and changed the Wi-Fi password. I contacted the apartment management company and confirmed the security code change. I even called our shared gym and suspended Bree's membership. By noon, I'd effectively locked Bree out of every aspect of our shared life. My phone rang at 12:15. It was Jules Morrison, Bree's best friend and biggest enabler. Brooks, what the heck is going on? I just heard the craziest story about Bree and her boss. What kind of story? That she gave him your vacation. Please tell me it's not true. I let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. I can't tell you that, Jules. Oh my God. Brooks, I had no idea. I mean, I knew she'd been working late, but I thought... You thought what? I thought she was just trying to get promoted. I didn't realize she was having an affair. Neither did I until recently. Jules was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I'm going to let them enjoy their vacation. That doesn't sound like you're just letting it slide. You know me pretty well. After Jules hung up, I knew the gossip would spread like wildfire. Jules had never kept a secret in her life, and she knew everyone in Bree's social circle. At 1:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. In position. They should be arriving any moment. I poured myself a beer and settled in to wait. The first call came at 2:45. Bree's ringtone, some pop song she'd downloaded, filled the apartment. Brooks? Brooks, what did you do? I'm fine, thanks for asking. How's your vacation? Don't play games with me. The tickets were canceled. They're saying there's some kind of fraud investigation. The airline won't let us on the plane. That's strange. Did you try explaining that you're traveling with your boss instead of your husband? This isn't funny. Graham is furious. His wife is here, Brooks. His wife is at the airport with lawyers and photographers. How did she know we were coming? Maybe someone told her. You told her. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, Bree. You did that all by yourself when you decided to steal our vacation and give it to your lover. He's not my... We're not... This is just a business trip. Right. That's why you packed the lingerie I bought you for Valentine's Day. The line went quiet, except for the sound of Bree's breathing. How do you know what I packed? I know a lot of things, Bree. For instance, I know you've been planning this for weeks. I know you told Graham that I wouldn't notice or care. I know you've been using our joint credit card to buy him gifts. You went through my things. I went through our things. There's a difference. Brooks, please, just fix this. Call the airline and tell them it was a mistake. I can't do that. Why not? Because it wasn't a mistake. I canceled those tickets on purpose. I could hear voices in the background, Graham arguing with someone, Vivian's sharp tones cutting through the chaos. Where am I supposed to go? Bree's voice cracked. I can't go home with Graham's wife here. The photographers are taking pictures of everything. That does sound awkward. Brooks, I'm serious. I need to come home. About that, there's been a small change to our living situation. What kind of change? I changed the security code to the apartment. I also moved your belongings to a storage unit. You what? Storage unit number 47 at Secure Space on Maple Street. I paid for 3 months. The key is with our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, in 4B. You can't do this. It's my apartment too. Actually, if you check the lease, you'll find that only my name is on it. You never got around to adding yourself as a tenant. Another silence, longer this time. This is insane, Brooks. You're acting like a crazy person. I'm acting like someone who's tired of being taken advantage of. I never took advantage of you. You stole our vacation and gave it to another man. You've been having an affair for months. You've been using our money to buy him gifts. If that's not taking advantage, I don't know what is. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Explain why you've been texting Graham at midnight. Explain why you bought new lingerie for this trip. Explain why you told him that I wouldn't even notice you were gone. I don't have to explain anything to you. You're right. You don't. But you might want to explain it to his wife. She seems very interested in your relationship with her husband. The call ended abruptly. My phone rang again 10 minutes later. This time it was Graham. Carvin, what the hell do you think you're doing? His voice had the kind of entitled anger that came from a lifetime of getting his way. I dealt with guys like Graham before. Wealthy clients who thought they could bully contractors into working for free. I'm protecting my interests, Graham. Nothing personal. Nothing personal? You've ruined a legitimate business trip and caused a scene at the airport. My wife is threatening to divorce me. That does sound personal. For you, I mean. I want you to fix this. Call the airline, tell them it was a misunderstanding, and get our tickets reinstated. I'm afraid I can't do that. Why the hell not? Because I'm not your travel agent. I'm Bree's husband. The husband she decided to cheat on with you. Look, Carvin, I understand you're upset, but... Do you? Do you really understand? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you convinced my wife to steal our vacation so you could have a romantic getaway on my dime. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? Graham was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was more controlled. Bree and I have a professional relationship. This trip was meant to be a working vacation, a chance to discuss her career development away from the office. Right. And you always discuss career development in Cabo, in adjoining hotel rooms, while wearing the lingerie her husband bought her. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly. You're a married man having an affair with your employee. You convinced her to steal her husband's vacation so you could have a romantic getaway. And now that you've been caught, you're trying to blame everyone else. This isn't over, Carvin. You're right about that. I hung up and immediately called Vivian. How did it go? Better than I expected, she said. I have photos of them together, recordings of Graham trying to explain the situation to airport security, and a very interesting conversation with Bree about their professional relationship. What's next? Next, I call my lawyer and file for divorce. But first, I think I'll pay a visit to Graham's office. His board of directors should know what kind of man they've put in charge of their company. What about Bree? What about her? She made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. After Vivian hung up, I called Derek back. How's the gossip campaign going? Like wildfire, Derek said. I've never seen anything spread so fast. By the time I left Murphy's, half the bar was talking about it. Jules Morrison showed up around 3 and confirmed the whole story. Jules confirmed it? Oh yeah, she was practically broadcasting it. Said Bree had been planning this for weeks, that she'd been bragging about her relationship with Graham, that she thought you were too stupid to figure it out. I felt a familiar anger building in my chest, but I pushed it down. Anger was a luxury I couldn't afford right now. I needed to stay focused. What else did Jules say? That Bree had been complaining about you for months. Said you were boring, that you didn't understand her ambitions, that you were holding her back from the life she deserved. Interesting. Brooks, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. For the first time in months, I know exactly where I stand. And where's that? On solid ground. That evening, I ordered Chinese food and ate it while watching the local news. The airport incident hadn't made it onto television, but I knew it was only a matter of time before the story spread beyond our immediate social circle. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the night. Friends asking if the rumors were true, acquaintances offering sympathy, business contacts expressing concern. I responded to each one with the same message. Thanks for reaching out. I'm handling the situation. At 11:30, Bree called again. Brooks, please. I'm at Jules's apartment, but I can't stay here forever. I need my things. I need access to our accounts. Your things are in storage. The key is with Mrs. Patterson. What about our joint accounts? What about them? I tried to use my debit card and it was declined. That's because I moved our savings to a new account. You can't do that. Actually, I can. I opened the account, I made all the deposits, and my name is the only one on the signature card. That money is half mine. The money I earned while you were having an affair with your boss? I don't think so. Brooks, listen to me. I know this looks bad, but it's not what you think. Graham and I are just friends, close friends. Close friends who book romantic vacations together? It wasn't romantic. It was business. Right. That's why you packed the silk nightgown I bought you for our anniversary. How do you... Never mind. Look, I made a mistake, okay? I should have talked to you about the trip. I should have been more honest about my relationship with Graham. Your relationship? My professional relationship. My mentoring relationship. Graham has been helping me develop my career skills. Is that what they're calling it now? Brooks, please, I love you. I want to come home and work this out. That's not going to happen, Bree. Why not? Because you made your choice. You chose Graham over me, his vacation over ours, his future over our marriage. Now you get to live with that choice. But I choose you. I'm choosing you right now. No, you're not. You're choosing the security I represent. You're choosing the apartment and the joint accounts and the comfortable life I've built for us. But you're not choosing me. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my work? When was the last time you showed interest in my projects or my goals? When was the last time you looked at me the way you look at Graham? The silence stretched between us. I thought so, I said finally. Enjoy your new life, Bree. I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, Phase 3 would begin. Friday morning brought rain and the kind of gray sky that matched my mood perfectly. I'd slept better than I had in months, which probably said something disturbing about my mental state. But for the first time since discovering Bree's affair, I felt like I was in control of the situation. My first call was to Tommy Chen at Meridian Financial. "Brooks, man, the whole building is buzzing about yesterday. Is it true that Graham's wife showed up at the airport with lawyers?" "That's what I heard." "Dude, you should see this place. Graham didn't come in today, and Bree's badge was deactivated. HR is in full panic mode." "Interesting. Any word on what's happening with the investigation?" "What investigation?" "The one HR is going to launch when they find out about Graham's relationship with his employee. The one that's going to examine whether company resources were used for personal purposes. The one that's going to question whether Bree received preferential treatment in exchange for personal favors." Tommy was quiet for a moment. "Brooks, what did you do?" "I sent an email to HR this morning. Detailed timeline of events, copies of text messages, documentation of the misuse of company time and resources. I also included the airport incident report and the insurance fraud investigation number." "You're not messing around." "No, I'm not." After hanging up with Tommy, I drove to my current job site, a kitchen renovation in Newton. The work was mindless and physical, exactly what I needed to keep my hands busy while my mind processed everything that had happened. My crew chief, Roberto, found me around 10 o'clock, ripping out old cabinets with more force than necessary. "Boss, you okay? You're attacking that cabinet like it insulted your mother." "Just working through some personal issues." "Woman trouble?" "You could say that." Roberto nodded knowingly. "My ex-wife tried to take half my business when we divorced, claimed she was a partner because she answered the phone sometimes." "What did you do?" "I made sure she got exactly what she deserved." "Nothing." I spent the lunch break in my truck, monitoring the fallout from my morning email. Jules had called twice, Derek had sent 3 text messages, and I had 17 missed calls from Bree. I called Derek back first. "Where have you been? Bree's been calling everyone, trying to get someone to talk sense into you." "Define sense." "She wants you to retract your statement to HR. She's claiming you're having some kind of breakdown, that you're making up stories about her and Graham." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that if she wanted to talk to you, she should call you herself." "Good answer." "Brooks, she's also been talking to Jules about getting a lawyer. Something about filing a restraining order claiming you're harassing her and Graham." I laughed, which seemed to surprise Derek. "What's so funny?" "She thinks she can intimidate me with legal threats. She doesn't realize that I've been documenting everything from the beginning." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I have copies of every text message, every email, every financial transaction. I have photos of her packing for the trip, recordings of our phone conversations, witness statements from airport security. If she wants to make this a legal matter, I'm ready." "Damn, Brooks, you really thought this through." "I told you. I'm thorough." My phone rang while I was talking to Derek. Bree's ringtone. "I have to take this," I told Derek. "Brooks." Bree's voice was high and strained. "You have to call HR and tell them you made a mistake. They're launching an investigation into Graham's department. They're questioning everyone who works with us." "That sounds thorough of them." "This isn't funny. Graham could lose his job. I could lose my job. All because of your vindictive lies." "What lies, specifically?" "You know what lies. The stuff about us having an affair, about misusing company resources, about the vacation being some kind of romantic getaway." "Which part of that is a lie?" "All of it." "So you're not having an affair with Graham?" "No." "You didn't give him our vacation?" "That's different. That was just what?" "It was a gesture of appreciation. He's been working so hard, and I thought—" "You thought you'd give him the vacation your husband planned and paid for?" "Yes, but not because we're having an affair." "Then why?" Bree was quiet for a long moment. "Because he deserved it more than you do." The honesty was like a slap. Not because it hurt, I was past being hurt by Bree, but because it revealed so much about how she really saw me. I see. Brooks, I didn't mean— Yes, you did. You meant exactly what you said. Graham deserves the vacation I planned and paid for because he's more important to you than I am. That's not— It's okay, Bree. I understand now. You've made your priorities clear. Brooks, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. But you did say it, and more importantly, you meant it. I hung up and immediately called HR at Meridian Financial. This is Brooks Carvin. I sent you an email this morning regarding my wife's relationship with her supervisor. Yes, Mr. Carvin. We received your documentation. I have to say it's very thorough. I wanted to add one more piece of evidence to the file. What kind of evidence? A recorded confession. My wife just admitted that she gave our vacation to Graham Ellison because, in her words, he deserved it more than you do. She also confirmed that this was a personal gesture, not a business arrangement. You recorded this conversation? Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I'm allowed to record conversations I'm a participant in. I see. Can you send us the recording? I'll email it within the hour. After I hung up, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. Bree had basically confessed to everything: the affair, the misuse of company resources, the personal nature of her relationship with Graham, and she'd done it while I was recording the call. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian Ellison. Graham came home an hour ago, packed a bag and left. His lawyer called to discuss settlement terms. I texted back, "How are you holding up?" Better than expected. Angry, but not surprised. I've suspected something was going on for months. What's your next move? Divorce proceedings start Monday. I'm also considering a civil suit against your wife for alienation of affection. Is that a real thing? In Massachusetts? Absolutely. And with the evidence you've provided, I have a strong case. I spent the rest of the afternoon working, letting the physical labor clear my head. By 5 o'clock, I'd finished demolishing the old kitchen and was ready to start the rebuild. There was something satisfying about tearing down something broken and building something better in its place. Derek called as I was packing up my tools. You need to know something. Jules called me an hour ago. She's been talking to Bree all day, and apparently Bree is planning some kind of counterattack. What kind of counterattack? She's going to claim that you're abusive, that you've been controlling and manipulative throughout your marriage, that you're having some kind of mental breakdown and she's afraid for her safety. Interesting strategy. Brooks, this is serious. If she files a restraining order and makes those claims stick, it could affect your business license, your reputation, everything. Let her try. What do you mean? I mean, I have 2 years' worth of text messages showing that she was happy in our marriage until she started her affair with Graham. I have bank records showing that she had full access to all our accounts. I have witness statements from friends and neighbors about our relationship. If she wants to claim I was abusive, she's going to have to explain why she never mentioned it to anyone before this week. You really have thought of everything. I told you I'm thorough. That evening, I ordered pizza and spent 2 hours organizing my evidence files. Text messages, emails, financial records, photos, audio recordings, everything neatly categorized and backed up in multiple locations. My phone rang at 9:30. Jules Morrison. Brooks, I think we need to talk. About what? About Bree. About what you're doing to her. What am I doing to her? You're destroying her life, her job, her reputation, her relationship. You're systematically tearing apart everything she cares about. I'm not destroying anything, Jules. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. The truth? The truth is that Bree made a mistake, one mistake, and you're punishing her like she committed murder. One mistake? Yes, she got too close to her boss, she made a bad decision about the vacation, but that doesn't make her a monster. Jules, how long has Bree been having an affair with Graham? She's not having an affair. How long, Jules? Silence. You know, don't you? She told you about it. She's been confiding in you for months. Brooks. How long? 6 months, Jules said quietly. But it wasn't supposed to be serious. It was just, she was feeling neglected, unappreciated. Graham made her feel special. 6 months, and you knew about it the entire time. I told her to end it. I told her she was making a mistake. But you didn't tell me. It wasn't my place. It wasn't your place to warn me that my wife was cheating on me. It wasn't your place to give me a chance to fight for my marriage. Bree said you wouldn't care. She said you'd barely notice. And you believed that? Jules was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to tell you, but Bree is my best friend. I couldn't betray her trust. But you could let her betray mine. That's not how I saw it. How did you see it, Jules? I thought she'd come to her senses. I thought she'd end it with Graham and recommit to your marriage. I thought she'd choose you. But she didn't. No, she didn't. Jules, let me ask you something. If someone was cheating on Derek, would you want me to tell you? That's different. How is it different? Because Jules started crying. Because I would want to know. I would want someone to tell me. Then you understand why I'm angry. Yes. But Brooks, what you're doing, it's too much. You're not just getting revenge on Bree. You're destroying her. She destroyed herself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. After Jules hung up, I sat in my apartment now, not ours, and thought about what she'd said. Was I going too far? Was I being vindictive? Then I remembered Bree's words from that morning. He deserved it more than you do. No, I wasn't going too far. I was going exactly as far as necessary. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Graham's been fired. Board meeting this afternoon. Apparently your evidence was very compelling. I texted back. What about Bree? Terminated for cause. Violation of company policy regarding relationships with supervisors. I stared at the message for a long moment. In less than 24 hours, both Bree and Graham had lost their jobs, their reputations, and their futures. The vacation they'd tried to steal had cost them everything. My phone rang. Bree. Brooks, what have you done? Her voice was barely a whisper. I told the truth. I lost my job. Graham lost his job. His wife is divorcing him. My friends won't return my calls. I have nowhere to go. You have the storage unit. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Brooks, please, I'm begging you. Make this stop. Call HR, tell them you exaggerated. Tell them you were angry and made mistakes. I didn't make any mistakes, Bree. Please, I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll quit my job. You already quit your job. Well, technically you were fired. I'll make it up to you. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. The rest of your life? Yes. The rest of your life with me, or the rest of your life with Graham? Silence. That's what I thought. Brooks. Goodbye, Bree. I hung up and turned off my phone. Phase 4 would begin tomorrow. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me optimistic about the day ahead. Instead, I woke up feeling like I was preparing for battle, which, in a way, I was. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them over coffee, noting the progression from confusion to anger to desperation. Bree, Jules, Graham, even a few mutual friends who'd heard various versions of the story. The most interesting message was from Derek. Bree and Graham were spotted at Secure Space storage facility at midnight. Security cameras caught everything. I called him back immediately. Please tell me you have copies of that footage. Better. I know the owner, Mike Rodriguez. We went to high school together. He pulled the tapes for me as a favor. And it's better than reality television. Bree's trying to get into the storage unit, but she doesn't have the right key. Graham's arguing with the night security guard, demanding access. The guard calls the police when Graham starts getting aggressive. The police were involved? Oh yeah. Bree had to show ID to prove it was her unit. But since you paid for it and have the only key, they couldn't force entry. Graham got cited for disturbing the peace. I felt a grim satisfaction. Where are they now? Last I heard, they were staying at the Marriott downtown. Separate rooms, according to the desk clerk. How do you know the desk clerk? I did electrical work there last year. People remember good contractors. After hanging up with Derek, I drove to the storage facility. Mike Rodriguez was in the office reviewing security footage on his computer. Brooks, Derek told me about your situation. Man, that's rough. Can I see the footage? Mike turned the monitor so I could watch. There was Bree, looking frantic and disheveled, trying different keys in the lock. Graham stood behind her, pacing and gesturing angrily. When the security guard approached, Graham got in his face, pointing and shouting. He's lucky our guard is patient, Mike said. Some guys would have tased him for that attitude. Can I get a copy of this? Already burned it to DVD. Derek said you might need it for legal purposes. I spent the rest of the morning at my job site, but my mind wasn't on work. I kept thinking about Bree and Graham at the storage facility, desperate and scrambling. They were starting to understand that their actions had consequences, that they couldn't just charm or manipulate their way out of this situation. Around noon, Derek showed up with sandwiches and news. You're not going to believe what happened this morning. Try me. Bree went to your apartment building and tried to convince Mrs. Patterson to give her the storage key. And? Mrs. Patterson called the police. Apparently Bree was acting erratically and making threats. What kind of threats? She told Mrs. Patterson that you were having a mental breakdown and that she needed to get into the storage unit to retrieve medication. Medication? Yeah, Mrs. Patterson didn't buy it. She's known you for 3 years and she's never seen you take so much as an aspirin. I laughed despite myself. Bree's never been good at lying under pressure. Gets better. When the cops showed up, Bree tried to claim that you'd locked her out illegally, that she had rights as your wife. What did they tell her? That domestic disputes are civil matters and she needed to contact a lawyer. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Carvin? This is attorney Patricia Walsh. I represent Bree Carvin in her domestic relations matter. Bree hired a lawyer? Mrs. Carvin has asked me to contact you regarding the return of her personal property and access to marital assets. What marital assets? The joint savings account, the apartment lease, shared credit cards. Ms. Walsh, let me stop you there. The savings account is in my name only. The apartment lease is in my name only. The credit cards are in my name only. Bree has no legal claim to any of those assets. Mr. Carvin, Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. Mrs. Carvin is entitled to her fair share of assets acquired during the marriage. Fine. She can have half of our joint debts. I'll send you the credit card statements. Mr. Carvin. Ms. Walsh, let me save us both some time. I have documented evidence that Bree has been having an extramarital affair for 6 months. I have proof that she misused marital funds to purchase gifts for her lover. I have recordings of her admitting that she gave our vacation to another man because he deserved it more than I did. If she wants to make this a legal matter, I'm prepared to present all of that evidence in court. The line was quiet for a moment. I see. Mr. Carvin, perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss a reasonable settlement? There's nothing to settle. Bree made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. I hung up and turned to Derek, who was staring at me with something approaching awe. Remind me never to get on your bad side. You're not planning to steal my vacation and give it to your boss, are you? Considering I work for myself, that would be difficult. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Vivian Ellison knocked on my door at 3 o'clock, looking elegant and composed despite everything she'd been through. "Mrs. Ellison, this is a surprise. I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to thank you in person." "Thank me?" "For giving me the evidence I needed to protect myself. Graham's been hiding assets, planning to leave me for months. If you hadn't exposed his affair, I might have lost everything in the divorce. I'm glad I could help." "There's something else. Graham and your wife have been trying to contact my lawyer, claiming that you've been harassing them, that you're unstable and potentially dangerous." And my lawyer told them that if they wanted to file complaints, they should contact the police. But he also mentioned that false accusations could constitute harassment themselves. Vivian handed me a business card. "That's my lawyer's information. He specializes in family law and civil litigation. If Bree escalates this situation, you might need representation." "Thank you. There's one more thing. Graham came by the house this morning to pick up some belongings. He was with your wife. They're still together?" "It appears so. Though I have to say they both looked miserable. Unemployed, homeless, and facing multiple lawsuits tends to strain a relationship." After Vivian left, I called the lawyer she'd recommended. Attorney James Morrison, no relation to Jules, thankfully, agreed to meet with me Monday morning to review my situation. "From what Mrs. Ellison has told me, you've been very thorough in documenting everything," he said. "That's going to work in your favor if this becomes a legal matter." "Do you think it will?" "Desperate people do desperate things. Your wife and her lover have lost their jobs, their reputations, and their financial security. They're going to be looking for someone to blame, and you're the obvious target. Let them try." "Mr. Carvin, I appreciate your confidence, but I need you to understand something. Even if their claims are baseless, defending against them will be expensive and time-consuming. Sometimes it's better to offer a small settlement just to make the problem go away." "No settlements." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." Bree made her choice. She chose Graham over me, his future over our marriage, his happiness over my well-being. She doesn't get to change her mind now that things aren't working out the way she planned. That evening, I was working on my laptop when someone started pounding on my door. Not knocking, pounding, hard enough to rattle the frame. I looked through the peephole and saw Graham Ellison, red-faced and furious. "Open the door, Carvin, we need to talk." I called 911 first, then opened the door with the chain still attached. "What do you want, Graham?" "I want you to fix this mess you've created." "I didn't create any mess. You did that when you decided to have an affair with my wife. You've ruined both our lives over a simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" "Bree and I are colleagues, friends. There was never anything inappropriate about our relationship." "Right. That's why you're unemployed and getting divorced." Graham's face got redder. "You manipulated the evidence. You took innocent interactions and made them look suspicious." "I documented the truth. If the truth looks suspicious, maybe you should examine your behavior. I want you to call my former employer and tell them you exaggerated. I want you to call my wife's lawyer and withdraw your statement. I want you to fix this. And if I don't, then I'll make you regret it." "Is that a threat, Graham?" "It's a promise." I could hear sirens in the distance. "Well, you can discuss your promises with the police. They should be here any minute." Graham's expression changed from anger to panic. "You called the cops? You came to my home and threatened me. What did you expect?" He turned and ran for the stairs. I watched through my window as he sprinted to his car and drove off, just as the police cruiser turned onto my street. The responding officers took my statement and the security footage from my building's cameras. One of them, Officer Martinez, seemed particularly interested in the case. "This guy's been making a lot of noise around town," she said. "We've had 3 calls about him in the past 2 days. The storage facility incident, the disturbance at his hotel, and now this." "What happened at the hotel?" "Noise complaint. Apparently he and some woman were having a loud argument that lasted until 3 in the morning. Some woman. Bree. Officer, what are my options if he continues to harass me? Document everything. Keep recording. If he shows up here again or makes any more threats, call us immediately. We'll arrest him for criminal harassment. After the police left, I called Derek. Graham just came to my apartment and threatened me. What kind of threat? The vague kind. He said he'd make me regret it if I didn't retract my statements to HR and his wife's lawyer. Did you call the cops? They just left. Graham ran when he heard the sirens. This is escalating, Brooks. These people are getting desperate. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. They also do stupid things, dangerous things. Graham's not dangerous. He's entitled and angry, but he's not violent. What about Bree? I thought about that. Bree had always been manipulative, but I'd never known her to be physically aggressive. Then again, I'd never known her to cheat on me either. I'll be careful. Maybe you should consider backing off. You've made your point. They've both lost their jobs. Graham's getting divorced. Bree's homeless. Isn't that enough? No. Why not? Because they're not sorry. They're not sorry they had an affair. They're not sorry they tried to steal our vacation. They're not sorry they betrayed me. They're only sorry they got caught. And that matters? It matters to me. Derek was quiet for a moment. Brooks, I've known you for 20 years. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Cold, calculating, ruthless. Maybe this is who I really am. Maybe I've just been pretending to be nice for so long that I forgot. Or maybe you're becoming someone you don't want to be. After Derek hung up, I sat in my apartment and thought about what he'd said. Was I becoming someone I didn't want to be? Or was I finally becoming someone who wouldn't be taken advantage of? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You'll pay for what you've done to us. I screenshot the message and added it to my evidence file. Let them escalate. I was ready. Sunday morning brought an unexpected call from Tommy Chen. Brooks, you need to get down here. Bree and Graham are in the Meridian building. What? How did they get in? Bree still had her building access card. Security didn't get the memo to deactivate it until Monday. They're in Graham's old office, and from what I can see on the cameras, they're going through files. Are you recording this? Everything. They've been here for 2 hours, copying documents and downloading files from Graham's computer. Call building security. Already did. They're on their way up. I threw on clothes and drove to the Meridian building, arriving just as Bree and Graham were being escorted out by security guards. Both of them were carrying boxes of documents and looking defiant. I parked across the street and watched as they loaded their stolen files into Graham's car. Then I followed them. They drove to a Kinko's copy center, where they spent another hour scanning documents and making copies. I couldn't see what they were copying, but I had a pretty good idea. Personnel files, performance reviews, company policies, anything they could use to build a case that their terminations were unjustified. While they were inside, I called Attorney Morrison. They're building a wrongful termination case, he said, after I described what I'd witnessed. They'll claim that their relationship was consensual and didn't violate company policy, that you manipulated evidence to make it look worse than it was. Can they win? Depends on the evidence. But the fact that they're stealing documents to build their case doesn't look good for them. What should I do? Document everything. Get copies of the security footage from both buildings. Make sure you have timestamps for all their activities. After Kinko's, Bree and Graham drove to a coffee shop in Harvard Square. I parked where I could watch them through the window. They sat across from each other, documents spread across the table, arguing intensely. My phone rang. Jules. Brooks, where are you? Why? Because Bree called me an hour ago, crying. She says you've been following her, that you're stalking her and Graham. I'm not stalking anyone, I'm protecting my interests. By following them around town? By documenting their activities. They just broke into Graham's former office and stole company documents. They what? You heard me. They're building a case to claim wrongful termination, and they're using stolen evidence to do it. Jules was quiet for a moment. Brooks, this has gone too far. You need to stop. I'll stop when they stop. Stop what? They lost their jobs, they're facing lawsuits, they're basically homeless. What more do you want? I want them to admit what they did. I want them to take responsibility for their actions, instead of trying to blame everyone else. They'll never do that. Then this will never stop. I hung up and continued watching Bree and Graham through the coffee shop window. They were still arguing, their body language becoming more aggressive. Graham kept pointing at documents, while Bree shook her head and pushed papers away. Finally, Bree stood up and walked out, leaving Graham alone with his stolen files. She got in her car and drove away. Graham gathered up the documents and followed her. I had a choice to make: follow Bree or follow Graham. I chose Graham. He drove to a law office in downtown Boston. I recognized the name on the building: Kellerman, Walsh and Associates, the same firm that had called me yesterday on Bree's behalf. Graham spent 90 minutes inside. When he came out, he was smiling for the first time since this whole situation began. That couldn't be good. My phone rang as I was driving home. Derek, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Jules just called me. Bree's planning something for tomorrow. What kind of something? She's going to the police. She's going to file a restraining order against you, claiming that you've been stalking and harassing her. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that you've been following her around town all day. I felt a chill. How does Jules know I was following them? Because Bree called her from the coffee shop and told her you were sitting in your truck across the street watching them. Damn. Brooks, this is bad. If she gets a restraining order, it could affect your business license, your professional reputation, everything. Let her try. I have evidence that they broke into the Meridian building and stole documents. That's not going to matter if a judge decides you're stalking her. Derek was right. I'd been so focused on gathering evidence that I'd walked right into a trap. What do you think I should do? Get ahead of this. Call your lawyer, call the police. Make sure your side of the story gets told first. I called Attorney Morrison immediately. Mr. Carvin, we need to meet first thing tomorrow morning. If Mrs. Carvin is planning to file for a restraining order, we need to be prepared to respond. What kind of response? We'll file our own motion, documenting their harassment of you, the threatening phone calls, Graham's visit to your apartment, the theft of company documents. We'll show that you're the victim here, not the aggressor. Will that work? It should. But you need to stop following them. No more surveillance, no more documentation. Let them make the next move. That evening, I sat in my apartment and reviewed everything that had happened over the past week. I'd successfully exposed Bree's affair, cost both her and Graham their jobs, triggered Graham's divorce, and documented their attempts to steal company documents. But now, they were fighting back, and they were smarter than I'd given them credit for. They'd maneuvered me into a position where my legitimate evidence gathering could be portrayed as stalking. I had to admit, it was a clever strategy. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying your last night of freedom? Tomorrow you'll learn what real consequences feel like. I screenshot the message and added it to my file. Then I called the police and reported the threatening text. Officer Martinez took my statement over the phone. Mr. Carvin, we're starting to see a pattern of harassment here. Your ex-wife and her boyfriend are escalating their behavior. Ex-wife? Sorry, estranged wife. The point is, they're the ones engaging in criminal behavior, theft, trespassing, making threats. If they try to claim you're stalking them, we have documentation showing the opposite. Thank you, officer. Just be careful, and stop following them around. Let us handle it from here. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I met with Attorney Morrison at 8 o'clock, and we spent 2 hours preparing for whatever Bree and Graham might throw at us. The key is to stay calm and factual, Morrison said. Don't let them provoke you into doing anything that could support their harassment claims. What if they get the restraining order? Then we'll fight it. But I don't think they will. The evidence is on our side. At 10:30, Morrison's assistant knocked on his office door. Mr. Morrison, there's been a development. Bree Carvin and Graham Ellison were just arrested. Arrested for what? Breaking and entering. They tried to get into Mr. Carvin's apartment building this morning. The building manager caught them trying to pick the lock on the main entrance. Morrison looked at me and smiled. Well, that changes things considerably. I called Derek immediately. Did you hear? About the arrest? Yeah, it's all over the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson saw the whole thing from her window. What exactly happened? According to Mrs. Patterson, they showed up around 9 o'clock with some kind of lock-picking tools. They were trying to get into the building when the property manager came by for his weekly inspection. And he called the police? He called the police, building security, and the owner. They're taking this very seriously. Good. Brooks, there's something else. Jules called me this morning. She's been talking to Bree's lawyer. And the lawyer dropped Bree as a client. Apparently, Bree lied about several important facts, and when the lawyer found out, she withdrew from the case. What kind of facts? Like the fact that you have recordings of Bree admitting to the affair. Like the fact that all the accounts and property are in your name only. Like the fact that Bree has been making threatening phone calls and sending harassing texts. I felt a wave of satisfaction. So they're on their own now? Looks like it. And with criminal charges pending, no lawyer is going to want to touch their case. That afternoon, I received a call from Officer Martinez. Mr. Carvin, I wanted to update you on the arrests this morning. What's the status? Both suspects have been charged with attempted breaking and entering, criminal trespass, and possession of burglary tools. They're being held pending arraignment. When's the arraignment? Tomorrow morning. But there's something else you should know. What? When we searched them, we found copies of documents stolen from the Meridian building, along with a detailed plan to break into your apartment and plant evidence. What kind of evidence? Drugs. They were planning to plant illegal substances in your apartment and then call in an anonymous tip. I felt cold. They were trying to frame me? That's exactly what they were trying to do. We found text messages between them discussing the plan, along with the substances they intended to plant. Can you prove it? We have everything we need. Text messages, physical evidence, witness statements. They're looking at serious felony charges. After Officer Martinez hung up, I sat in my apartment and tried to process what had just happened. Bree and Graham hadn't just been planning to harass me. They'd been planning to destroy my life completely. A drug conviction would have cost me my business license, my professional reputation, possibly my freedom. And they'd been willing to do it to cover up their affair. My phone rang. Derek. You okay? You sound shaken. They were going to plant drugs in my apartment. What? I explained what Officer Martinez had told me. Jesus, Brooks, these people are seriously twisted. I know. Are you going to be okay? Yeah, I think so. For the first time in a week, I think this might actually be over. What do you mean? I mean they've finally shown their true colors. No judge is going to believe their harassment claims now. No jury is going to sympathize with them. They've destroyed themselves more thoroughly than I ever could have. So what happens now? Now they go to prison, and I get my life back. And Bree? I thought about that. Bree, who'd betrayed our marriage for a man who was willing to frame me for drug possession. Bree, who'd chosen Graham over me and then helped him plan to destroy my life when their affair was exposed. Bree made her choice, I said finally. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Tuesday morning, I sat in the courtroom and watched as Bree and Graham were arraigned on multiple felony charges. They stood before the judge in orange jumpsuits, looking defeated and desperate. Bree's eyes met mine across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, young, hopeful, full of dreams. Then I remembered the text messages, the stolen vacation, the attempt to frame me for drug possession. That woman was gone. Maybe she'd never really existed. The judge set bail at $50,000 each. Neither Bree nor Graham could make bail. They were led away in handcuffs. It was over. 3 weeks later, I was back to my normal routine. Work during the day, quiet evenings at home, weekend projects around the apartment. The media attention had finally died down. The story of the cheating couple who'd tried to frame the betrayed husband had been local news for exactly one news cycle. Derek stopped by on a Thursday evening with beer and updates. "Graham took a plea deal," he announced, settling into my kitchen chair. 5 years probation, restitution to Meridian Financial, and a permanent restraining order preventing him from contacting you. What about Bree? Still fighting the charges. Her new lawyer thinks he can get the breaking and entering reduced to trespassing. New lawyer? Some guy who specializes in hopeless cases. Apparently, Bree's family mortgaged their house to pay his retainer. I felt a flicker of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition that real people were being hurt by this situation. Then I remembered the drugs they'd planned to plant in my apartment, and the feeling passed. Any word on the divorce proceedings? Vivian Ellison got everything. The house, the business assets, even Graham's car. He's living in a studio apartment in Malden and working at a call center. Rough. He brought it on himself. Derek was right, but I found myself thinking about Graham more than I'd expected. Not with sympathy, he'd made his choices, but with a kind of clinical curiosity. How did someone go from being a successful executive to planning felonies in the span of a week? The answer, I realized, was that he'd probably always been capable of it. Success and respectability were just masks that came off when the pressure got high enough. "What about you?" Derek asked. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected. The business is actually doing well. Turns out being the victim in a local scandal is good for name recognition." "And personally?" "Personally, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I feel like I've been carrying around this weight for months, and now it's gone." "No regrets?" "About what?" "About how far you took this. About destroying their lives." I considered the question seriously. Did I regret exposing Bree's affair? Did I regret costing them their jobs? Did I regret the chain of events that led to their arrests? "No," I said finally. "I don't regret any of it." "Even knowing how it ended up?" "Especially knowing how it ended up. They didn't just cheat on me, Derek. They tried to destroy my life to cover up their affair. They were willing to send me to prison to protect themselves." "I know, it's just, this whole thing changed you. Maybe it revealed who I really am. Or maybe it revealed who you can become when you're pushed too far." The following Monday, I received an unexpected visitor. Bree's mother, Patricia, knocked on my door at lunchtime. I hadn't seen her since last Christmas, and she looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past month. "Hello, Brooks. Mrs. Morrison, this is a surprise. May I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. Patricia had always been kind to me, even when Bree and I were having problems. She didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this mess. "I suppose you know why I'm here," she said, settling into my living room chair. "I can guess. Bree's trial starts next week. Her lawyer thinks she could get 2 years in prison." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you? Are you really sorry, Brooks?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you could end this. You could ask the prosecutor to reduce the charges. You could testify on Bree's behalf, explain that she was manipulated by Graham, that she's not really a criminal." "But she is a criminal. She broke into my building. She planned to plant drugs in my apartment. She made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but she's not a bad person, Brooks. You know that." I looked at Patricia, this woman who'd welcomed me into her family, who'd treated me like a son for 8 years, and tried to find the right words. "Mrs. Morrison, I understand that Bree is your daughter, and you love her. But the woman who planned to frame me for drug possession isn't the woman I married. Maybe she never was. People do crazy things when they're desperate. Yes, they do. And then they face the consequences. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. What happened to you, Brooks? You used to be such a kind man. I'm still kind. To people who deserve kindness. And Bree doesn't deserve kindness? Bree deserves exactly what she's getting. Patricia stood up, her face flushed with anger. You're destroying my daughter's life over a vacation. No, I'm holding your daughter accountable for her choices. She destroyed her own life when she decided to cheat on me and then try to frame me for a crime. She made a mistake. She made a series of deliberate choices. She chose to have an affair. She chose to steal our vacation. She chose to help Graham plan to plant drugs in my apartment. Those weren't mistakes. They were crimes. Patricia walked to the door, then turned back to face me. I hope you can live with yourself, Brooks. I hope the revenge was worth it. It wasn't revenge, Mrs. Morrison. It was justice. After she left, I sat in my apartment and thought about what she'd said. Was I the same kind man I'd been before all this started? Or had I become someone harder, colder, more calculating? The truth was, I didn't know, and I wasn't sure I cared. That evening, I called Attorney Morrison to discuss Bree's upcoming trial. Are you planning to testify? He asked. If the prosecutor needs me to. He might not. The evidence is pretty overwhelming. The text messages, the physical evidence, the witness statements. Your testimony would just be icing on the cake. What do you think she'll get? If she's convicted on all charges? Probably 18 months to 2 years. With good behavior, she could be out in a year. And then? And then she'll be a convicted felon with no job prospects and a destroyed reputation. She'll probably have to move somewhere else and start over. I thought about Bree starting over in a new city, with a new name, trying to rebuild her life from nothing. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for her. The rest of me remembered the drugs they'd planned to plant in my apartment. Mr. Carvin, are you still there? Yes, sorry, I was just thinking. About what? About how different things might have been if she'd just been honest with me from the beginning. You mean if she'd asked for a divorce instead of having an affair? Exactly. We could have ended things amicably, divided our assets fairly, and both moved on with our lives. But that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened. The trial lasted 3 days. I attended every session, sitting in the back of the courtroom and watching as the prosecution laid out their case. The evidence was damning. Text messages discussing the plan to plant drugs, surveillance footage of them breaking into my building, the actual substances found in Graham's possession. Bree's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been manipulated by Graham, that she was a victim of his influence, but the text messages showed that she'd been an active participant in planning the frame-up, not a reluctant accomplice. On the 3rd day, Bree took the stand in her own defense. She was thin and pale, wearing a conservative suit that made her look younger than her 32 years. Her lawyer led her through a carefully crafted story about how Graham had manipulated her, how he'd convinced her that I was abusive and controlling, how she'd been afraid for her safety. It was a good story. If I hadn't seen the text messages, I might have believed it myself. Then, the prosecutor cross-examined her. Ms. Carvin, you testified that you were afraid of your husband. Is that correct? Yes. Yet you never filed a police report about this alleged abuse. I was too scared. You never told your friends or family about the abuse. I was ashamed. You never sought medical treatment for injuries from this alleged abuse. He was careful not to leave marks. I see. Ms. Carvin, I'm going to read you a text message you sent to Mr. Ellison on October 15th. Quote, Brooks is such an idiot. He actually thinks we're just friends. This is going to be easier than we thought. End quote. Does that sound like someone who's afraid of her husband? Bree's face went white. That's taken out of context. What context would make that statement consistent with fear? I can't explain it. How about this message from October 20th? Brooks deserves everything that's coming to him. He's been taking me for granted for years. Does that sound like fear to you? I was angry. Angry at your allegedly abusive husband? Yes. Ms. Carvin, let me read you one more message. This one is from November 2nd, the day before you were arrested. Quote, once we plant the stuff and call it in, Brooks will be finished. He'll lose his business license, maybe even go to prison. Then he'll know what it feels like to have his life destroyed. End quote. Ms. Carvin, does that sound like the words of a woman who's afraid of her husband? Bree started crying. I never meant for it to go that far. Graham said it was the only way to protect ourselves. Protect yourselves from what? From Brooks finding out about us? But he already knew about your affair, didn't he? He'd already exposed it, cost you both your jobs, triggered Mr. Ellison's divorce. What were you protecting yourselves from? From the consequences. The consequences of your own actions? Yes. So you decided to frame your husband for drug possession to avoid facing the consequences of your affair? It wasn't supposed to happen that way. But it did happen that way, didn't it? You and Mr. Ellison planned to plant illegal substances in your husband's apartment and then call in an anonymous tip to the police. Yes. And if that plan had succeeded, your husband would have been arrested, charged with drug possession, and possibly sent to prison. Yes. All to cover up your affair? Yes. The prosecutor sat down. Bree's lawyer tried to rehabilitate her testimony, but the damage was done. She'd admitted to everything. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. They found her guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. As the bailiff led her away in handcuffs, Bree looked back at me one last time. I saw fear in her eyes and regret and something that might have been an apology. But it was too late for apologies. I walked out of the courthouse into the crisp November air and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It was over. Finally, completely over. Derek was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. How do you feel? Relieved. No regrets? None. What now? Now I go back to work. I finish the kitchen renovation in Newton, start the bathroom project in Brookline, maybe take that vacation I never got to take. Alone? For now. Maybe not forever. We walked to our cars in comfortable silence. As I drove home through the streets of Boston, I thought about the past 2 months and everything that had happened. Bree's casual betrayal, the stolen vacation, the escalating revenge, the arrests, the trial. It had been ugly and painful and necessary. Derek was right. It had changed me. I was harder now, less trusting, more willing to fight for what was mine. But I wasn't sure that was a bad thing. The old Brooks had been too accommodating, too willing to let people take advantage of him. The new Brooks wouldn't make that mistake. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy now. You got what you wanted. I recognized the number. It was from the jail. Bree had found a way to send me one last message. I deleted it without responding. I was happy. For the first time in months, I was genuinely, completely happy. And I'd earned every bit of that happiness. The vacation they'd tried to steal had cost them everything: their jobs, their reputations, their freedom, their futures. They'd learned too late that some prices are too high to pay. I drove home through the gathering darkness, already planning my next project. There was work to be done, a life to rebuild, a future to create. And this time, I'd be building it on my own terms.